5 will pay on the tote when correct way to Semaphore, $4.40 for the win and $1.30 for the place. Caraman, who ran second, will pay 75 cents, and Turf Ruler, number 7, who ran third, will pay $4.45. Dulcify, $4.40 and $1.30. Second, Caraman, 75 cents. Third, Turf Ruler, $4.40. The running double has paid $23.60, and the trio, $543.60. Still awaiting the Quinella tote dividend to be announced, and their totes on the Victoria Derby on the numbers 4, 1 and 7 as Dulcify returns at the head of affairs. And there's Brent Thompson. And as you said, 2 very good rides today, Gary, to win both feature races.
And now he must imagine his confidence soaring now for the Melbourne Cup. Like he'll go out on so-called now with these, like the 3 wins, the Cox Plate, the McKinnon Stakes, and now the Derby. Like, what more could a jockey want? And he's 20 years old. Well, you know, he's got such a great future in front of him, Brent, that, you know, we're going to be hearing about him a long time when I've hung up the saddles.
Did you notice that grin?
Oh, I'd be grinning too.
The Quinella, incidentally, has returned $5.30. $5.30 the Quinella on Dulcify and Caraman, $5.30, which complete totalisator dividends on the Victoria Derby. March to Glory was very disappointing. Got a little bit of a traffic jam coming to the bend.
Yes, they bunched up rather badly once they got over the half mile, and a lot of horses then you had to be, you know, just in the clear, and that'd be where the non-stayers would be starting to come back on you in a race like this.
Well, I wonder whether there will be some hard luck stories from some of the beaten brigade. There's Brent Thompson now.
Oh, I don't really think there would be, Clem. I think every horse had a good run in the race, really. It looked a very clean run race. And,
well, Brent is clear. Roy Higgins now about to go. Notice he hands the whip and the cap to
That's right. You don't weigh out with him and you don't weigh in with him.
7L Dittman, 55 a half.
Len Dittman now on Turf Ruler.
In the old days when we used to ride, they used to have the skull caps, and we used to have to weigh with them, and of course the boys used to have them that light. They'd cut the tops out of hats and all sorts of things to dodge weights, and luckily now with the wisdom, these skull caps are terrific. If you had a fall with the old skull caps, they'd come off your head.
Would they?
And now these ones with everything, well, you're right.
Well, there is the winner.
Presentation, Mike, but we will have the official party moving down into that area. The racecourse manager, Ron King. Times are good today. You must be very proud of your track.
We're extremely pleased with it, Phil, and the weather's glorious, and that all makes for good racing, and that race then was first class.
Big crowd and the stand.
Very good crowd, and they're betting extremely well, so we're delighted with the day.
OK, well, let's have a look at the official party as they move down into the presentation area. Mr. Rupert Steele, of course, the chairman of the VRC, will be going down with them. There we have the winning horse, 237.5, Ron.
Well, that's a good run, very good run. It's only a couple of seconds outside the record, and I was most pleased, and I'm sure the owners would be too. It was a great run.
Well, there we have Chris Ford patting the horse on the rump there for the moment, and now we have the official party forming. On the right of the screen is Clary Bennett's the publicity officer of the VRC. There's Mrs. Hayes with the pink hat, Murray Cox, the chief executive of the Victoria Racing Club, and there is His Excellency the Governor in the topper, congratulating Colin Hayes. Colin Hayes near Mrs. Hayes there with the pink hat, and obviously very, very excited. Brent Thompson, the jockey, moving towards His Excellency, and Colin being patted on the back by the proud owner, Mr. Grigg. Mr. Rigg, of course, over here from Western Australia. We just spoke with his mother and father, and in a moment we'll see the chairman of the VRC, Mr. Rupert Steele, move up to make the presentation. What a great crowd it is here today under ideal conditions. We have some happy people congratulating still Brent Thompson. He's rode a winning double today, and a very, very proud boy indeed. Murray Cox in the background, again Mrs. Hayes, and there's His Excellency the Governor talking with Brent. And any moment we'll have the presentation coming up. If we could just look around the outside of the mounting yard, particularly in the race track area, You can see the crowds waiting on the presentation, and it's not often large crowds wait around other than the Melbourne Cup, Ron, is it?
The Melbourne Cup usually draws naturally the most crowd, but today there is an exceptionally large crowd viewing the presentation, the placing of the sash around the horse's neck. And it's a very traditional moment for the Derby winner, of course, to be there and have the sash placed around his neck, and it must be a proud moment for the owners of the horse. Yes, the presentation has been made, the sash is around his neck, and here's the replay.
And here's the low-angle replay of the race, and we'll have Peter Lovett and the boys back here with Brent Thompson in a moment. Graham Kelly coming over to talk with us, and there's the eventual winner coming in from behind Caraman, Dulcify, and what a powerful run.
Fantastic run, Phil. Des and I watched the race together. He was running about 8th past the 800 metres. By the time they'd got to the 600, he was 3rd last. And then Brent Thompson's brought him through to give him a clear run, but he was still about 12th or 14th entering the straight. And he was the only horse really that ran the distance. I think it was as simple as that. Caraman had every chance and just didn't quite, I mean, a gallant performance, but just didn't quite get the 2,500 metres.
Did you cite an unlucky run in the race?
Dulcify if he'd been beaten, Phil. Society Bows came outside him, but no, he couldn't make. This horse ran a fantastic race. You couldn't give credit to any other horse. He was by far the best horse in the race.
It does prove the class of Brent Thompson winning these classics.
Oh, yes, fantastic rider. He's just had a little bit of bad luck, and I think that he's not quite accustomed to the tough style of riding in Victoria, and he lapses occasionally. I think that's the only problem with him, and when he's G'd up for a race, he rides perfectly. So, it was a great run.
What about the run of some of the others? Madison was well mentioned.
Yeah, so he's a bit disappointed, didn't finish on. He's going to run in the George Adams next Saturday. Turf Ruler was an excellent run. He did a lot of work in the race and battled on pretty well in the straight.
All right, well, we have now with us the chairman of the VRC, Mr. Rupert Steele, and no doubt you'd be very, very happy with the outcome of today being the first live telecast that you've had out here. You must have been a little apprehensive about the crowd.
Yes, Philip, we're absolutely thrilled with the crowd. There's no doubt about Melbourne. They certainly support you when you put on something worthwhile. And on behalf of the committee, I would like to welcome all the viewers from one end of Victoria to the other to say how thrilled we are to bring this meeting to you. And I hope people in hospitals who are sick have enjoyed it. And let's hope that this is the forerunner of many more of these television days. Philip?
Mr. Steele, you must be happy with the crowd. Have you any indication, is it up or down? Or
well, we think that the crowd is very good. We're not sure. We won't know for a couple of races, but I think it's probably about line ball with last year, which is very, very exciting. I'm sure when the newsstand's finished that we'll get even more people next year.
Well, I don't want to make a prior judgment, but no doubt you must be happy, even with television being here, about the way the attendance.
Well, I would like to congratulate you, Philip. I think you and your team have put a terrific lot of effort into this. You've been so amazingly keen since we decided in May this year to do it, and I do congratulate you and thank you for all you're doing for racing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rupert Steele.
And I would also like to thank Sir Reginald Ansett, because he's a great help to racing, and we appreciate everything that he does for us too.
Well, I'd like to thank him too for keeping me in the job.
Righto, Philip. Thanks very much.
The chairman of the VRC, Mr. Rupert Steele. And now we'll take you back to Mike.
Well, I think we should also say at this point that we should say thank you to the Victoria Racing Club for the tremendous cooperation, for everything that to lay it on for us to make all this possible, because as you can imagine, when you plant 13 cameras around the racecourse and all the other facilities we require to make it all happen, of course we have to say thank you for that as well. Right now I think we can go over to Des Spain, who has something to say for us. Des, over to you.
Well, it's terrific to congratulate Mrs. Hayes, who usually doesn't get on television, but look, Betty, congratulations, love. It must be a great thrill.
Oh, it's the biggest thrill, and especially to have my husband train it, of course.
Yes, well, I wondered who the young fella was who was the trainer. Kyle, congratulations. Now, what made you buy this horse? I presume you didn't breed it.
No, I bought it in New Zealand just as a spec buy, really. I think I paid for $3,500 for him.
$3,500?
Yes, and I liked his pedigree, and he just had presence and walked right for me, and I liked him, and so I bought him. I got him very cheaply because he's parrot mouth.
I see. Well, he can still eat pretty well, apparently.
Oh, yes. Some of my I've had one or two very good horses like that, and it didn't worry me.
Well, you were saying this is your third Derby out of the last 5?
It's been a lucky race for me, Des, yes.
And what about Brent Thompson's ride?
Wasn't it superb?
What did you think about it?
Marvellous one. My colours too, I might say.
I know, the blue and the black.
Yeah, the blue and the black.
I think he's justified, hit the confidence in him.
Well, he was pushed back in the race, Cole, to about third last coming to the turn. Were you worried?
Well, I knew that they had to stop. They'd gone so fast.
Yeah.
And Brent's very clever at threading his way through the field. And, I didn't enjoy him being back there, certainly, but I did enjoy the last furlong.
Yeah, well, that's good. And he ran the last half mile in about 49.5. Anyway, now we've got to go back to Mike Schilberger, and thank you very much, Mrs. Hayes and Colin.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Des Spain. Now I suppose we should start looking forward to the next race, number 5 on the programme, the Wakeful Stakes. And Clem Dimsey, perhaps you can give us some idea of how it's going to go.
Thanks, Michael. It looks a dead-set Quinella event between numbers 1, Carpalaran, and 2, Scameld. I've selected number 2, Scameld, to win the race because I thought he was a victim of circumstances. John Stocker last start. Len Dittman has taken the ride. He's come down from Brisbane to ride Scameld. And there's no doubt that...
Thank you, Peter. It's really topped the day off. Hope I haven't finished yet, though.
Well, what else have you got to ride?
Oh, well, I've still got 3 rides, so, I wouldn't like to stop straight away.
Brent, compared to Family of Man's run, where you were always up near the lead, Dulcify staged a remarkable finishing effort, particularly when it looked as if Caraman had the race won.
When I rode him at the Valley, he just appeared to me that he's a horse that you couldn't really push too hard. He was... If you let him alone, he sort of comes to you. And he, actually today he just raced a little bit harder than what he did at the Valley, but of course it was 2,500 metres.
Yeah, it's a big step from 1,600 metres to 2,500 metres.
But, I was possibly getting a bit worried about between a half mile and 1,000 because I was getting... The horses were weakening and horses were coming from the outside. And I wasn't getting around, but I thought as soon as we pull out and go out, I'll just sit and wait and hope for the best, and gaps come, and 3 went.
I must say that your good mate Roy Higgins wouldn't be too pleased with that result.
Well, when I improved on the outside of horses, all of a sudden I came across Caraman. He must have been about 4 lengths in front of me at that stage, and I thought, gee, still got a horse to get past here, and all of a sudden you could just start to see myself pegging him back, and he went to the line really strong.
Well, I don't want this to become monotonous, but still we might have to keep going later in the day.
Oh, well, I hope so. It's not a bad habit, Pete.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Peter Lovett and Brent Thompson. When we were talking a little earlier, in fact, to...
Trio double. After the second leg at Flemington this afternoon. And there's Brent again with that same smile that we saw after the Derby.
Well, look, Clem, I've just been thinking, how tremendous he's going. His ability as a jockey, you just wouldn't know how far Brent could go.
But can you imagine his confidence now, Melbourne Cup Day, on so cool?
Well, he'll go out there, on cloud number 9, and I just wish him all the best. He's a great kid, and he's a credit to racing, and they do racing a lot of good.
What part does confidence play in a jockey's life?
Confidence is everything. It doesn't matter if you're playing golf, basketball, anything. You're riding winners is this game, and that's the big thing.
Or calling races, I think it's the same. Well, there it is, Brent Thompson on the scales, waiting for correct weight. Just wait 1 second for correct weight to be semaphored. There's Brent Thompson, John Stocker and Manicato. Not how disappointed, John.
34,
yes.
Gorham, 54.
I'd say that would be correct weight, and we'll just check the dividends. Always welcome, $10.60 and $2.65. Manicato 75 cents and Lipman $2.20. Their tote dividends on race 6, the Craven A Stakes.
9, Quinton.
Well, thank you, Clem, but what a moment, what a feeling it must be for a fellow like Brent Thompson. 3 in a row, or 3 races on a day like today. And that really must be something, but we'll talk to him in a moment. But first we'll have a break.
These days it's hard to get good service. Some days it's no service at all. I know how you feel. Service is my job.
We're trying to gather together the people who made that all happen, and I think Phil Gibbs can tell us a bit more about that now. Phil?
Well, Mike, there's quite a demonstration going on here by some of the punters. Des Spain, of course. I think you followed Always Welcome in its last start.
Well,
but the punters are upset out there.
Well, I think they're entitled to be a bit upset because at Caulfield I backed it and the horse didn't go 1 yard. There must have been, just one of those days. I know they can be... I should be booing myself, but I didn't back it today, even though the horse prior to racing at Caulfield had worked brilliantly. There must have been some lapse on that particular day, because since then his work's been first class. On Thursday he ran a half a mile and 48 1/4, equal to the better than La Mer, who came out and just narrowly was beaten by a Family of Man earlier. Possibly I should have backed it the same as they should have. It was too bad to be true at Caulfield, but that's racing and horses can't talk, I'm afraid.
Well, this is right. You know, we see horses putting in... Peter Levitt wants to say a word.
Yeah, may I suggest that the reason for the dramatic improvement is that Always Welcome raced in blinkers.
Well, let's have a look at the replay here. And here we have them coming up on the head-on shot, and it was certainly a torrid finish, wasn't it?
It was so too, and it just showed you that the Wanganui Whiz Kid is a whiz kid.
All right, and now let's take you over to Mr. Hilton Nicholas, the Vice Chairman of the VRC, for the presentation.
My pleasure to introduce the Amateur Company, the makers of Craven A, who have sponsored this race for many, many years. And we're most grateful to them for the support they have given the club over many, many years. This season they have also the Hallmark Stakes on Tuesday, and we're most grateful to you, Amateur Limited, for the support you have given. To make the presentation, we have, and I'm sure you will join me in welcoming Count de Cars, the senior steward of the Jockey Club of France, who is our distinguished guest at this carnival. I would like to ask the Count to make the presentation to the connections. And may I also congratulate Mr. and Mrs. Howell, the winning owner, and Mr. Hayes and Brent Thompson for this wonderful victory. Ladies and gentlemen, Count de Cars. Just give the...
Mr. Vice Chairman, Count de Cars, ladies and gentlemen, naturally you would appreciate it's a very great thrill for my wife and I to have won this magnificent race, which has been so well sponsored by the Amateur Company, and we are indeed grateful to them as owners, as I'm sure all other owners would be, for the interest which they have taken in racing, and that can only redound to the good of the sport and the industry in general. I would like to pay an especial tribute to my trainer Colin Hayes, who has worked with great patience and often with great difficulty, having to deal with one of his owners to get him as fit as he has today, to bring him to peak form and beat so magnificent a 3-year-old as Manicato. Brent Thompson, of course, needs no introduction to you, but to him go our grateful thanks for a magnificent riding effort. Finally, may I simply say one word about the young lady who is leading the horse round, and she too, his strapper, has done a magnificent